Hello, 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 my lovelies. It is me, Countess, and I am back with another video, which I hope you guys find interesting, because after that tarot read that I did on Sunday, I wanted to know more about the moon in general and the moon child. The moon has been a literal force of illumination, and it's also an esoteric force of illumination. And all throughout the ancient times, like the Egyptians and the Greeks, it was a male and feminine symbol, actually. It universally represented both male and female, making it a sexless being. And there you go again with the androgyny and the alchemy attached to the moon. And that is like an esoteric version of it also. Like you look to the tarot card that keeps coming up in all of these tarot reads that we're doing about Billy, and the moon symbolizes an illusion or darkness or a deception. Something is not what it seems. Hidden forces, occult forces, right, are at work. And the moon worship goes back to ancient Egypt with the Egyptian god Khonsu, and he was the ancient Egyptian moon god. And he wore like a headdress with a cobra and a moon disc on his head. And guess what, guys? He's associated with Thoth and Hermes. Basically, again, three entities represent one archetype. So Khonsu came before Thoth and Hermes. But again, the moon was both male and female. And so in the Greek, traditions, they would call the moon goddess Diana or Artemis. It's mainly looked at as a feminine symbol, because it does represent fertility and immortality, enlightenment, eternity, but it can also symbolize the dark side, the dark side of the moon that nobody has ever explored. And again, guys, I found this little funny article here. Did you know that there's a Masonic lodge on the moon? Oh my goodness, guys. I'll leave the link to this little article in the description. It's pretty funny. It's, they did, Buzz Aldrin talked about, when he planted the Masonic flag, that which was never recorded on live television. It was a secret ritual that they performed up on top of the moon. If you believe that we went to the moon, you can determine that one for yourselves. But yeah, so they planted a Masonic flag, and Buzz Aldrin had the authority as like a grand master to declare this flag as a marker for a Masonic lodge and a Masonic claim on the moon. And then like in the year 2000, we'll be able to fly to the moon like like we were getting on the plane and flying to like San Francisco or something. Like it's going to be that easy to get to the moon by the year 2000. Awkward. 22 years on. And why haven't we gone back to the moon? Oh, they say that they lost the technology somehow. There's no joke. Like if you Google, NASA, what conspiracy, whatever, and kind of dig, there's an interview with one, I think it was with Buzz Aldrin. And then another guy even said it, that all of the quote unquote technology that was needed to, get to the moon and pass the, the radiation belt or whatever. I forgot what it's called. They can't do that. The space station is below that radiation field. So they just kind of go in orbit with the Earth. But the moon, I just don't understand why in our most advanced technological state, we have not gotten the technology to go back to the moon. But they were able to go back to the moon in 1969 or whatever it was. Sure. It's like these things do not add up, and I don't know. I'll just park it there. That's, again, another subject for another time. I just thought that article was funny because then I also ran into a article discussing actual moon lodges from the Masons, and what it is what they say on Freemason sites is that due to the lack of natural or artificial illumination by which no one could travel to and from the meetings. So during the 18th century, transportation was limited to horseback and horse and buggy, walking, and even sometimes by boat. There were no paved roads and very few gravel, merely 2 dirt ruts that would meander through bush and fields, rarely in a straight line, with only a candle or a coal oil lamp to light the way. A full moon provided welcome companionship for a long and lonely trek. So that's why there's a moon lodge. But I personally think that there's more to that meeting on the night of a full moon. Yeah, that's kind of sus to me. But anyways, I just wanted to share that with you guys because I was doing sort of my looking around and poking in places on the internet. I came across that and just wanted to share it with you. So anyways, let's go on to the main topic at hand. So from theosophy, and from even Wicca and these philosophies of life that come from occult knowledge and practices, the moon represents something that is magical, and it inspires art, and in Crowley's Magic in Theory and Practice book, I think it is, he says, that all art in any form is magic, and that you're contributing to changing something in front of you by your will, by your creating whatever it is in front of you. And so just think of that. Whoa, that kind of like stopped me in my tracks because I am an artist. I do a lot of journaling and, collaging and mixed media kind of stuff. And yeah, I don't believe that my intention, though, is behind, oh, I'm going to create magic when I sit down and do this. No, but the people who have influence on the world believe in this stuff, and the moon means a lot more than we know, and there is magic in it and madness in it, right? The word lunatic is from the word luna, which is the moon in Spanish, and the moon is also called, the mistress of melancholy in Shakespeare's Othello. I love Shakespeare. I actually wanted to get my master's in Renaissance literature at one time, but then life happened and I didn't do it. I could still do it. It's just not convenient to do it at the moment. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Sorry, I got off on a tangent. But so they look at the moon as Earth's mother. Like, the moon is not Earth's subordinate. The moon is what cradles the Earth. The moon is what keeps the tides going and keeps our planet orbiting, and it controls it, right? And according to the teachings of Theosophy, the moon played a very important part in the formation of the Earth. And it's said that the moon was much alive as our own Earth is today. And it was a complete entity energized by the soul and mind and the forces of being whose habitation it was. The entities, they had life terms that were limited, and death eventually came. And so the energies which made the moon a living body, departed to form the nucleus of a new body of the Earth. And that comes from a paper called The Magic of the Moon by a theosophist named John Garrigues. And I thought that was very interesting. So, if the theosophists are thinking this, I have to think that the Masons are, because Helena Blavatsky was herself one of the very, very few women who were indoctrinated into the Masonic Lodge, not the Order of the Eastern Star, which is the female order. She actually got put into the Masonic Lodge and accepted by them because she knew her shit. So I have to think that this kind of philosophy about the moon being like Earth a long time ago, Earth not existing, and all of the energy coming from the moon to the Earth to form the Earth. It's like, what? But it's because of this power that the moon has, that moon worship has been a central part, and it is what Mr. Greg, I cannot pronounce his name, I'm so sorry. His name is John Garrigues. I'll just say John. So what John says is that the whole history of moon worship centers around the mystery of lunar phenomenon. The rites were based upon a knowledge of physiology, mathematics, and astronomy, and were records of observed natural and scientific facts. So moon worship has been around for a very, very long time, and it's even bled into the sort of Christian sect of Catholicism, where they worship the Mother Mary, who is in essence the Queen of Heaven, which is in essence a female embodiment of the moon. She stands on a crescent moon. That is true for the High Priestess in the tarot deck as well. She stands between the pillars of duality with the moon under her feet. She is enlightenment and knowledge, basically. And yeah, so we're going to shift gears now from moon worship and we're going to read this article from that's based on Fritz Springmeier's work. It's from a website called Strange Times, and it's strangetimenews.wordpress.com. And this is called Moon Children. What are they? And this is a really, really good article that explains this entire phenomenon, and it relates back to what we're talking about with Billy, and Billy possibly most likely being a moon child. So I'm going to read most of this, so bear with me, guys, and follow along if you'd like. So the moonchild rituals are the rituals to demonize a fetus. However, the demons that are invoked are not the small ones, but very powerful ones. In working with victims of this programming, it is clear that high-level demons were placed within these people at very early ages. It is believed that many of them were demonized before they were born by rituals like the moonchild rituals. Blood sacrifices and human sacrifices were always required for this level of magic. And then it goes on to introduce Crowley and all of his stylings from all of the different orders he belonged to. And yes, his writings have been important with the 20th century Satanism and with black magicians, but really, he's not a Satanist. He's a Luciferian. And the Luciferians, I feel, are much different than the atheistic aspect of Satanism. There are, like Anton LaVey, theistic Satanists that do the rituals and whatnot, but they're just doing it to invert Catholicism and invert and be blasphemous. That's something that obviously Anton LaVey's will forced him into doing, not forced him, enabled him into doing and pursuing his own will of wanting to be blasphemous and, establish the Church of Satan in the 1960s. But the Luciferians are a lot different. They are the ones who are into these human sacrifices and blood sacrifices. There is life and power in the blood, and that comes from the Bible as well. Okay, let's continue. So the idea of the moonchild is that by the use of black magic, a perfect soul can be captured. The belief in reincarnation, which is prevalent among the Illuminati and satanic groups, lends itself to the beliefs that the souls complete for a particular embryo. On page 107 and 108 of Moonchild by Crowley, the idea is expressed to, quote, to produce a man who should not be bound up by his heredity and should have the environment which they desired for him, unquote. This perfect soul in a proper person is called homunculus. I'm so sorry. Homunculus. Oh my goodness, I'll forget it. And a lot of different famous people through history, Francis Bacon, Albertus Magnus, and Paracelsus. They were in occult circles, and they were said to have captured souls and placed them into brass statues. Yeah. So, continuing, the Hittites, the people of Asia Minor and Syria, have long sought the ability to create a superman and superwoman. The Illuminati's inside occult history places the I cannot say this. I'm so sorry, guys. I don't want to offend anybody either with my ignorance. I'm so sorry. With them in their ancestry. So in 1917, long before Superman appeared in comics and movies, Crowley was writing about a Superman. The magical idea is to capture a soul from the fourth dimension. Pause it there. And we'll all be magic Supermen. We'll all be magic Supermen. At the end of Sergeant Pepper's The Reprisal. Yeah. Bam, bam, bam. Ties up with the Moonchild and Crowley right there. Again, Billy is telling us about his relationship to Crowley. And yeah, it's kind of, and then I think about, quote unquote, well, I'll just say Billy McCartney releasing Magneto and Titanium Man. That song, he partnered with Stan Lee, and Stan Lee actually created those guys. And one of the characters in the song, his name is the Crimson Dynamo. And dynamo is something that Manly P. Hall spoke about. Like when the mason has mastered his craft, he can hold the dynamo in his hand, and then the seething powers of Lucifer are at his command. I think he said that somewhere in the Secret Teachings of All Ages. Dynamo and crimson, red blood. So power in the blood. Yep. I mean, this shit is everywhere. So, and this kind of, again, points to the whole why Billy is about the moon, and the moon is right. The spirit's up. We're here tonight, and that's enough. Yeah. I actually saw an article, I don't even know where, but it was saying the exact same thing as the video that Mike Williams just did recently about, like, what do you hear? Do you hear moon or the mood? The mood is right or the moon is right. And obviously that's another, like, overdub thing where you get the subliminal message on top of the conscious message. And it's about a moon ritual. The winter solstice. That is what Christmas is based on. It's not based on Christianity. There's nowhere in the Bible that tells us that Christ was born on the 25th. No, it is the time of the winter solstice and Saturnalia. And that goes back to, like, the cult of Dionysus and all of that shit. And it's all linked together with this Crowley and this black magic. And entangled in everything, and it's just kind of sickening, when you realize this. So another kind of interesting part of this article is that the villa used to produce a moonchild was called the butterfly net, and that's in the book of the Moonchild. The Monarch Project, which is named after the monarch butterfly, MK Ultra mind control, which we went over in a separate video, is also an allusion to the Moonchild project, where butterflies are an allusion to souls, what Christians call demonic spirits. So, yeah, it's awful. It is just so heartbreaking to think that innocent children are born into this horrific, horrible trauma. And Billy was one of them. That, the memoir straight up tells us. He was a moonchild, guys. This whole thing, this article is just screaming, the trauma-based mind control that they talk about in the memoirs. So it goes on to say that there's a vague description of the rituals in the book Moonchild. The ritual took place at a villa nicknamed the Butterfly Net. The villa was really an occult temple laid out in sacred geometrics. It had figures of satyrs, fauns, and nymphs. Pan, ding, ding, ding. And it also had statues of Artemis, Diana, the moon goddess, tomato, tomato. Lots of silver objects and crescents. Get this, and 9 pointed stars were at the villa, because these objects all relate to the moon in magic. The moon's influence was repeatedly invoked. A small triangular silver altar to Artemis was used, the goddess of fertility, right? For a pregnant woman doing this moonchild ritual. In labor, there was a sacred spring where the woman was washed. The number 9, which is sacred to the moon, was used along with its square of 81. So I'm not too sure what a square of 81 is, but again, you have the numerology 8 plus 1, it goes back to 9. So during this ritual, prayers were made to Artemis, and there was a reenactment of the capture of Diana by Pan. There's Pan again. Ugh, they bleed into each other, don't they? The woman was coached to identify herself with what is known as Grandmother Moon. In the book, she is simply called the Moon or Diana, by identifying her thoughts and actions with the deities one is wanting to invoke. Wow. The creation of the moon children within the Monarch Project involves high-level magic by the circle of Illuminati black magicians who are involved with a particular individual's programming. It should be noted that Grand Master and Grand Dame altars will understand demonology, but the sections of altar above them are not informed. One of the biggest secrets kept from most of the slaves' altars is that their system was demonized while a fetus. First, this would give religious front altars the information that they need to get them on the right track towards healing, and it could also adversely affect the programming lives of some of the front altars who don't realize how premeditated all of the trauma and the torture is. The front altars of the victims remember the cover story that the moon children were produced via torture in cages as little children. The Illuminati have also planned that every one of the 10 commandments of God will be violated in their favor with the child. They prefer the child to be born out of wedlock so that it is a bastard. This breaks God's commandment on adultery and also gives them more leverage to destroy the child's self-esteem. This entire plan involves generational curses, which are spoken and unspoken during Illuminati ceremonies. Ceremonial pacts, which concern having the child out of wedlock to mock God, are made. While the Illuminati destroy any godly spiritual foundation, they are creating a solid rock hard foundation of quote-unquote love, adoration, or idolatry within the second commandments. I'm sorry, I think that my copy of the article got cut off there. Ugh. So, in the Black Mass, the names of God are invoked to get spirits with blasphemous names such as Yahweh and Elohim. Most parts of the little child will never even hear the Lord's name. He will only hear the name of his master, who will someday be presented to him as God. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. The child is being bonded to his future programmers. Much later, great attention will be given to set up staged events to ensure that the victim being programmed hates God. And this is taken from this website, educateyourself.org, and that it'll be a link directly to Fritz Springmeier's book and information. So, wow. What do you guys think about that? I think it's horrific, and I think it's disgusting, personally, that anybody could treat an innocent child that way, and to use an actual person as a sort of like computer to create alternate personalities that can handle different situations that you have conditioned them to handle. It's nuts, you guys, and it all comes down, the Monarch program it is a product of Operation Paperclip, when they brought in the Nazi scientists and doctors to help out the government, just because they were more advanced than the Americans at that time in their research, especially on their methods of mind control. And a lot of this, you guys, again, is linked back to the Saturn worship and the cults of Saturn and the sun worshipping cults and the moon worshipping cults. It's all the same. It's giving worship to Lucifer, the light bringer, the light bearer in their eyes. And now we can see sort of where Billy came from, I guess, with this moonchild ritual that we just read about. I thought that was highly interesting. I am not saying that this is fact. This is all my opinions and allegedly, obviously. But I just think it's interesting to share this information that I find because, yeah, I didn't know what a ritual is, and I know that, like, the Babylon working that Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard did to basically impregnate, I forgot the woman's name, with the whore at Babylon, basically. it's just disgusting. They demonize a fetus. So it's like that quote unquote stardust that we're made of, that Crowley says we're made of, it's just a bunch of garbage. It's just an excuse to be a horrible person, in my opinion. Anyways, I'm not going to get on that tangent and get to be a Debbie Downer. Wah, wah, wah. It's been kind of a longer video, and I wanted to explore this with you guys, moon worshipping and the history of it, and then getting into the moonchild ritual, because this shit is still going on. You know, they look at, you know, what Kanye West has been saying recently in the media. You know, he's talking about how his like trainer was an MK Ultra agent from Canada or some shit like that, how he had handlers. You know, it is very contrived in Hollywood, in the music industry, and it's all aimed to desensitize all of us and turn us into degenerates that don't think for ourselves. And that's what it boils down to, folks. So, anyways, that is all I have for you guys today. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have different opinions or different facts that you can contribute. I would love to hear it. But otherwise, I am done, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.